How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish, and today we have the fastest AMG S-Class in the world. And it just so happens, it's the cheapest. So if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys like it, and subscribe if you like what you see. I really like what I see because this is a W220 S-Class, and this is a car after my own heart. I've had a S-Class for as long as I can remember. My S-Class is not this one though. This one has a bit of a story, and I know somebody that knows a little bit about car stories, and that is this guy right here, Mr. Ed Bolian from VinWiki right there. So link in the description below for that. It's like freakishly tall. He has to stand behind me so we have like a weird,
Even it out.
Yes, there we go. This car is a car that Ed got for $1,500. And it was a salvage car, and it had a bunch of
12 owners, yeah.
12 owners, yeah.
Repainted several times. Yep. One really bad accident that damaged the frame and keeps one of the doors from shutting all that well. But
that's fine, that's okay.
It was salvaged in the mid-2000s and then rebuilt, and then went through some buy here, pay here life that didn't treat it all that well.
Sure, so what is the point of this car? I mean, why did you buy it?
So there were kind of two modern interpretations of the Cannonball run. One are idiots like me and Alex Roy that go out and try this on kind of a one-off basis to try to set the record.
Right.
But also, there were some other kinds of idiots that came together and actually had it as a race.
Yeah.
And this was a car that I bought to participate in the 2904.
Cannonball Run means that you go from New York to LA or LA to New York. Not a lot of people know what that is. They think it's a movie from the 80s. It's essentially a race, correct?
So it is a movie from 1981, but it was also a real thing that Brock Yates, while working for Car and Driver, started in the 1970s. And it was run 5 times as a New York to LA race, and it had up to about 80 cars in 1979. But it really stopped in 79 and then continued a little bit as the One Lap of America, and the US Express was also an event that came out and kind of grew from some of the Cannonballer participants. And the fastest time ever for the US Express, which was faster than all the Cannonball times, was 32 hours and 7 minutes.
Okay.
Which is a video you might have seen that Alex Roy helped to produce, but that was always kind of the benchmark of a time for a competitive event. Because obviously when we were out picking our departure times and dates and everything else with full control, it's a little bit easier than having to run with a whole field of cars.
Right, so this was initially bought as a project for the 2904.
So the 2904 was an event designed to cost $1 per mile to race across the country. So you had to spend less than $2,904 not only on buying the car, but fixing it, preparing it, gas, tolls, tickets, food, everything all in. And now, just like 24 Hours of Lemons, there's a lot of exclusions, like safety-related items. So I knew that most of the things that were expensive about an S-Class, as I know you found out, are the things that are fundamentally safety-related: suspension, wheels, brakes, tires, lighting, things like that. So I knew that if I could find one that just worked mechanically, I could probably make this happen. And fortunately, with about a year, actually exactly a year after our record in 2013, I had a party for everyone that was involved in our record attempt in the 2850 run, including the mechanics team from Mercedes, our local dealership that had helped me put the car together. And one of the master techs there, the shop foreman, had said, if you ever want to do this again, I'd love to come along.
Sure.
And obviously, you can't have a huge labor cost in trying to fix this thing up. So I ended up asking him to come along and earn his keep. And so Clink spent probably about 1,000 hours fixing all the little things about this car.
So Dave Clink, that's the guy who worked on this car and actually made it what you see here today. You see a really tatty exterior, but the interior is that of a thoroughbred monster under that hood, because this has a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated engine. This is an O2, so it was derivative of the M113 engine that was in my S-Class, and it had a little bit more power, a little bit more torque, but it was pretty much the same thing as a standard car. So what are some things that you did to this car? Now, I've done a video about my S-Class, so people know what that car is like, but what are some things that you've done to this car to make it ready for the New York to LA run?
So obviously we went through everything consumable on the car just to make sure that it was good. Obviously new brakes, new tires. I think we only replaced 2 of the shocks, and fortunately the pump was okay. We outfitted a much larger 73-gallon fuel cell that works a whole lot better in this car than the transfer pump system.
Oh, I want to see that.
And so that's probably, the most impressive thing. Obviously, it's hidden beneath this lovely patinaed exterior, which has continued to get a lot worse.
Oh, patina, is that what we're calling it here?
I think it's a hazard.
This is like a porcupine, basically. It hurts to touch.
It spent a lot of time in Southern California. I bought it from a woman on Craigslist in Las Vegas who had loaned it to her daughter to drive to Hollywood and become a famous actress. But unfortunately, it broke down and she did not become famous. But it sat outside with the windows down and in a collapsed suspension for about a year, I think, before I got it. And when we bought it, we didn't even know how many miles it had.
It's weird that this car became famous and she didn't. That's such a tragic thing.
I'm not sure that either position is enviable at this point.
Right.
In the CL, we have 2 additional 22-gallon fuel cells that go with the 23-gallon factory tank and transferred through the filler neck. On this one, I didn't really want to have to deal with the transfer systems. So what we did was we just welded a gigantic box to the factory fuel system. And so it's a little bit larger, about 73 gallons total. But the problem is, and I didn't realize this, because since the car had a salvage title, it was previously rebuilt. So it had a California Salvaged with a D title. However, when you bring one of those cars into Georgia, I had to have it re-inspected. And I didn't realize that. And so the first thing that I did was rip out the trunk lining and send it over to the fuel cell guy to let him start working, because that was kind of the biggest job of about the 10 months I had to prepare for this. So when I found out that I had to have this thing inspected, I obviously had to wait for all this because it was already well into tearing everything apart. And so I told the guy that I had hired to come be the inspector for $100 or whatever, that, you know what, the trunk won't open. Hope that's okay. And he said, no, I got to get the trunk open. Well, darn it, because it already had this in here. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? Could I cut a golf bag in half and make it? I don't know. So I called Clink and I said, hey, I need all of the official looking Mercedes stickers you can get me. So we got this AMG recommends Mobile One and wheel bolt toolkit stuff and premium fuel only. So obviously all the Cannonball stickers and stuff like that weren't on there. So when I opened it, I just kind of walked away and said, and this guy looks at it, and you can tell this guy's supposed to be like a car expert, so he doesn't want to look like some idiot asking, what's the deal here? And he just signed right off on it. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was obviously a big bullet dodge.
Take a look at this, it seems legit. Whatever. It's a long day, it's hot, I don't want to deal with this.
Exactly. So we set all that up, and also countermeasures were generally excluded from the calculation. So we had a city radio and a couple radar detectors and a laser jamming system.
So that's what you call countermeasures. So do you have spikes that come out or rocket boosters?
Yes. Fortunately, we
smoke screen.
Now, one problem we did have with the fuel cell is that even though it's baffled pretty well internally, it wasn't baffled enough. And so under braking or hard right turns, it would overflow the vent, fill up the charcoal canister, and run through the secondary evap system, flooding the intake with fuel. And as a last-minute kind of solution to stop the car from stalling when that happened, we just ran lines out of the top and bottom of the charcoal canister and just out the side of the car. So if you see over here, there's a line just running out of the bumper. And so under hard braking or hard turning, that shoots raw gasoline. So unfortunately, that has made it so that I can no longer renew my tag in this emissions-required Georgia County. That hasn't really been an issue. I probably put about 10,000 miles on it since then, but it's still on the October of 2016 expiration tag because we did the run at the end of 2015.
So what you need to do is move to Florida. That's the move, man. That's the move.
So at some point, they'll do that. But it was actually a really, really comfortable car. I was open to doing a CL or an S-Class, hopefully, as I was looking around Craigslist and making very insulting offers on a whole lot of different things. But this was obviously much more comfortable, but the weight was definitely noticeable. I mean, you're talking about 400, 450 pounds of fuel that change. And so the active body control system that these cars are notorious for being expensive to maintain with is actually what makes them terrific for this type of use.
Because you can put a lot of weight in the trunk and it doesn't really change the suspension geometry.
Exactly. And so it's adjusting multiple times per second to accommodate for that. But we actually ran the first 300-400 miles in this run faster than we had on the 2850 run. and it was actually making the other guys in the car sick because we were really hauling through eastern Pennsylvania. But the car did magnificently well and really became pretty much fully functional. I mean, there's tears and everything, and it's disgusting, but it was a great car to drive, and I continued to daily drive it for about a year afterwards. Certainly until the tag expired, I drove it a lot.
When I said that this car is the fastest S-Class AMG in the world, that I wasn't being facetious. It does have that record if you look at it from a certain point of view. So can you go into a little bit of why that is true?
The idea of the record of the Cannonball kind of provenance of the car is obviously grown out of not only Cannonball, but the US Express. And 3207 being the fastest time from the US Express, that was really our goal for this.
Yeah.
And as we were running into Redondo Beach, we knew that we were going to be close. And so I ran all the red lights through Redondo Beach, and we ended up making it in 32 hours and 5 minutes. So we beat that record by 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so technically, this is the fastest car ever to drive from New York to Los Angeles in a competitive event.
So can we look under the hood here? I just want to see what this baby's packing.
It's pretty stock looking.
Ooh, look at that.
A little bit of an epoxy job there, but
It's an A1G.
yeah.
Exactly. There we go. It's almost the same thing. The internet is going to tell you to clean your headlights, sir. That's what they tell me every single time. But these engines were not the supercharged engines that came in 03. Those are the engines. Actually, that's the engine in my SL55. These were just a little bit breathed on by the factory. This is before AMG was AMG. This was just a warmed over M113. Made a little more power, a little more torque. But it's a really nice driving car. I'm really surprised as far as the acceleration and braking of a car that is this is 5,000 pounds fully loaded. It has to be, right?
I think with everything in it and 3 people, I think we're pushing 6,000 pounds. But
okay, so 6,000. It's like a Range Rover going down the road, and you're expecting it to go 100 and some odd miles an hour.
56.
Oh, 156? I thought you were just saying 56, like, oh, we're saying
156.
156 miles an hour. That's how fast this $1,500 Mercedes went. And that was over a sustained period of time as well.
That was, yeah. So we averaged, I think, 88 for the entire trip.
That's
pretty solid. It was 10 miles an hour slower than the 500 horsepower CL55 that we used for the 2013 run.
Can you get like a return on this car? Like, can you return it? Because this is not good. So how about we take this thing for a ride, because I want to see what this car is all about.
By all means.
All right. Let's see what this thing is made of. First off, take a look at this key. This thing is way nicer than the one in my S-Class. Why did you get this? How did you get this key?
Well, when they shipped it here to Georgia from California, the trucker lost the key. So I had to order a new one, which meant that we had to repair the fuse panel here that was completely destroyed to make the dash work, because the dash has to work to learn the new key. Okay. So it created a whole lot more problems than it solved, but a byproduct was we got the nicer key.
So does the engine, no? Okay, so that doesn't work. Does the engine start, stop?
Keyless go.
Keyless go, okay.
No.
Yeah, well, in this model, it actually came with a card.
Yes, you had to have both.
Yeah, so I had the card. I have the card in my SL, but yeah, you couldn't get it with this, unfortunately. So can you go over like what is this this weird like matrix type thing?
So we had 2 big Garmin GPSs that would keep trip data and obviously work for navigation. And these are actually big enough, kind of between 2013 when we did the run in the CL and this one, they would actually route the whole country, so that was nice. And we had a big iPad running Waze, and the Bluetooth was obviously not existent in here, so we had that through here.
Well, the Bluetooth is for what? For
just phones, because we'd use phones to the scouts that we had driving ahead of us to give us information about the route. We got a CB radio back here.
Is that to alert truckers?
Or tell them to get out of your way.
Okay. Do they usually get out of your way?
Sometimes. They do better if you pretend to be the trucker that's next to them or that they're trying to pass and say, "You're good, buddy, come on by." Then they'll like march on. Then that was more entertaining and more efficient.
Rule number 1 is tricking truckers.
That's right. We had mounts for phones and things up here, and obviously stopwatches. And
so that's a stopwatch up there.
It is. Yeah, I think the battery's dead on it at this point.
Okay.
But, yep. That was kind of because you're trying to calculate with time changes and things like that exactly where you're at on pace. That's very useful.
Did you guys listen to music?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
You think you would have went faster if you listened to music? Maybe some like metal or something?
I have never been a listen to music in a car guy. I sold my last Lamborghini, and it showed up, and the guy goes, "Does the radio work?" And I had to tell him it did the one time that I tried it. But it's been like over a year.
Wow.
So that's all I could say.
Okay. Well, you weren't missing anything. The radio in this thing is garbage.
Correct.
But okay, so let's start it up.
Like a kitten.
Not bad at all. So we have 110,000 miles.
Yep.
It feels very, very I feel at home in this car. I mean, other than the check engine light, I would never own a car with a check engine light in my life, but I feel at home. This steering wheel is I definitely don't have this one.
Yeah, it's a Brabus steering wheel.
Ooh, Brabus steering. Yeah, there is so much more meat on it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so what works, what doesn't work?
Most of the things work.
Does the rear sunshade work?
Yeah, I think it does.
Let's see.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, awesome. Okay, look at that. So we are.
Let's say with low confidence. There we go.
Yes. Hey,
down,
hey, bam. Okay,
Yep.
ABC suspension, all that stuff works.
All
we're not
that
gonna touch that.
Yeah.
I mean, ABC Sport doesn't really do anything.
I usually drive with it on, and it's off at the moment. I don't know why, but why not? Let's see what happens.
Okay. This car, actually, even though it is an AMG model, it doesn't have the flappy paddles or the buttons on the back of the steering wheel. That came in the 03 model. So right here, the only thing you have is a Tiptronic up and down. But have you ever used it? Have you ever driven this car in anger, other than the obvious times you've driven the car in anger?
No, just those times, really.
Okay.
And
And were you really angry? I mean, you know, it seems like you were having more fun than anger.
I was, just wafting about.
So what's the general feeling in the car when you guys are doing this? Is this like a determined thing?
It is, yeah. It's very purposeful. I mean, all of the dialogue is really related to the activity of going fast. Of this ramp looks clear. This the car feels good. All your levels look good. Temperature looks good. There's nothing on the CB, nothing on the radar. Just constantly talking about the craft of driving, making sure that everybody's comfortable, advising you to adjust your seat to avoid blood clots and things like that.
Avoid blood clots.
You don't want to sit in the same position for 30 hours.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, these are things that I wouldn't have thought of at all, because the human body's not really meant to do this sort of thing.
No.
And kind of sustained acceleration, sustained forces, and you sitting in a seat, even though these are comfortable seats.
Correct.
Yeah, it's still not an ideal situation.
So I assume you're kind of like me in believing that, there's a lot of best cars made every year, but one is always the S-Class.
So I do think that the S-Class is probably the best car ever made, but in certain respects. I mean, best all-around car ever made, maybe. The problem with the S-Class, and it's the problem with most luxury cars, is the fact that you can get to a road with turns and realize that you probably brought the wrong car. With a Porsche 997 Turbo S with PDK, then I think that is a car where you probably won't get that feeling, even though you'll have almost all of the practicality that you get with an S-Class for for
two people.
Yeah, for two people. Let's call that two people plus maybe a kid. That's not bad pickup. That's not bad pickup. It does show its weight.
Oh,
I will say that. Yeah, but it's not bad for what it is. So, especially for a car that was $1,500. I mean, you can do a lot worse than this. There are a lot of dips in the road here, and I can't feel anything.
No, suspension's brilliant. And we went through it pretty exhaustively. So I think at this point, I think I ended up spending about $17,000 on it for the trip. So still within the $2,904 that had to be counted for 2904, but we definitely brought a sledgehammer to a knife fight.
Hey, is that David Patterson? Is that the guy in blue? So one of the things that this car was known for is its handling, not necessarily sports car handling, but just keeping itself sort of straight. Now, it really is hard to convey a sense of speed in video, and especially because we're not going super fast here. It's like we're going 50 miles an hour and we're behind a SUV. But for the weight of this car, I mean, this car has to be pushing somewhere north of 5,000 pounds as it sits right now with both of us in it. And it doesn't really feel that heavy, especially with an engine that doesn't make a ton of power. It makes 350 some odd horsepower, 355. So 355 horsepower V8, and it's really, I mean, the ABC suspension is working a treat. Just want to push it a little bit. Oh yeah, I mean, this is a mid-range car, low to mid-range car. I mean, it really gets up and goes here. That's not bad at all. We have a little coolant check level here.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's whatever. You know, it's $1,500. It's not a handling car, so I would say if anybody was looking to buy one of these, I would probably not get the S55. I'd probably get an S500 because those had Airmatic. And that's the one that I have. And Airmatic is super easy to diagnose, and the parts aren't as expensive. They are a little bit more expensive than, say, a regular coilover setup, but the ride is almost as good. I'm not gonna say it's just as good because hydraulic, you really can't beat it, but it's almost as good, and you can raise and lower it. It's not as fast. It takes about 60 seconds to raise and lower an Airmatic suspension, where here it's like instant. But it's just, all it is a line and a compressor and just some struts, and it's, yeah, this car is not bad at all. I really am impressed with what you can get for 1,500 bucks. And to think that this thing did 130 miles an hour sustained and basically beat the record, well, beat any record, and still and still live to tell a tale, is like, this is one hell of a car.
And it's still going 3 years later.
Still going 3 years later. There we go, with 110,000 miles. I think this is exactly the mileage that my S-Class has. So,
oh, really?
So when I get rid of that S-Class, then I'll know that it is capable of many, many great things. Okay, well, Ed, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, and thank you for showing this gem with me, even though it only cost $1,500.
My pleasure.
Thanks a lot. So that is it for today's video. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself, and I'm in VinWiki headquarters right now, actually about to record a video with Ed. He's actually on his computer doing internet things. But you can check that out. All that stuff will be in the link in the description below. But until next time, this is me telling you that on cars like all of Ed's, you guys need to wrench every day.